Hi, my name's Michael, and today I'm going to show you how to track your happiness against your bank balance and see if money really makes you happy. So as a source of data, we're going to be using my app, which is called Changes, which is in the App Store, which gives you this nice little CSV export function, which goes like this. There you go. So with that airdropped to my computer, let's get started. I'm using Google Sheets, so in Chrome you can just type sheets.new into the navigation bar, and then that will make a new spreadsheet. Then we can go File, Import, Upload, and drag in our data file that we uploaded from our phone. So let's go with this spreadsheet. What have we got here? Let's just pull this down. We've got the date, which is the date and time of each entry I've made in this diary. We've got the text of that entry. We've got a rating, which is -1 for unhappy, 1 for happy, and then 0 for neutral. We've got starred, which means that the entry was marked as a high point or as a low point. We've got a score. So if a rating was starred, its score is doubled. Otherwise, it's the same as the rating. So you can see a starred rating, -1, so that's -2. The mood trend is a smoothed line showing you how your happiness has changed over time. And this is really what we're going to be interested in today. Then finally, we've got this changes column, which is just going to give us a little bit more context for our data. So we're just going to create our first mood trend chart. So we select the mood trend column, we go insert chart. And you might think that's enough, but we need to set the x-axis to be time. And we need to change the type to be a smooth line chart. And here we have it. This is my happiness since early 2019. So now we've got to get our money in, and this step is going to vary wildly depending on who you bank with. If you have multiple accounts, credit cards, and other equity or debts, then you'll need to consolidate everything into one spreadsheet. And I'm just going to snap my fingers and conjure up some fake data so that we can keep this moving. As you can see, we've just got the date and balances all sort of in separate columns for each source of finances. So if you had a giant spreadsheet full of transactions with the balances, then you could just have, like all the rows of that there. Then you could go to your credit card statement, somehow import that and put all the rows of that in there, making sure they're negative values because it's a debt card, and same for savings. But to give you something in this format. So now we want to consolidate all of these different values. So you might have things at different times in the day, or you might have multiple transactions in a day. So what we're going to do is add a little pivot table. But first, before we can do that, we need a new column, which is the start of this day. So if we go start of day, we can go equals value to date, whatever that is, and pull that down. The reason we say value is because if we just use to date, then it would just be like a visual formatting thing. It wouldn't actually round it down to what we need. So now we can just select all of these columns. I held down shift there, go pivot table, create, and then in rows, we're going to put that start of day value. There's this sort of like gap up at the top, which is because we've got all these empty cells. So I'll just delete those to get rid of that. And then in values, we're going to stick each of our accounts, and we're going to summarize that by the average. So it's like whatever the average balance was for that day. And you might want to do min or max, or you wouldn't want to sum it because that doesn't make any sense. But let's just add in checking. This is a sort of Americanism for me to say checking account, because we have a current account here, but hey, I'm trying to make this more generally accessible. So average for that, and credit card average. Now we've got this spreadsheet. We're going to clean that up so that we can cross-reference it with our other data. So we'll start by adding a total column in which we will just sum these values and pull that down. Actually, we don't really want that total column. Let me just get rid of that. Then we want a normalized money column, which is going to be a value between -1 and 1, which we can then, because these values are all between 0 and 1. So what we can do is go we'll call this one money because this is going to be the label. So we'll take the total divided by the maximum of this column. This would work if we didn't have any debt, if we never had a negative value. So if I just make that a number, so you can see this is like we started off with the most number and then that sort of like goes down. But if this was negative, the formula gets a little bit more complicated. I'm actually just going to copy and paste it. This will come out the same, but this will take the maximum of either the maximum positive value or it'll find the minimum value, so that if there's like a minus 5,000, that will be bigger than 3,000. So then it uses absolute to make that a positive number, and then it takes the maximum of those two positive numbers, divides it, and now you've got a value between -1 and 1. That's how you'd make your own data, but I've actually, got my real data somewhere, so that's what I'm going to use here. So we're going to go back to the main sheet. We're going to insert a column here called money, and we always give the column headings what we want the chart label to be, just to save a bit of effort. I'm going to add like, 300 rows because I don't know how much I need here. And go back up to the top, and well, what you'd do here, usually you'd select your start of day, and you'd hold down Command or Control, select that, copy it, and paste that in. And now we've got, well, no, you wouldn't just paste it in, you'd go Edit, Paste Special, Paste Values Only to get that in. So that's now in this spreadsheet, and you may need to format that as a date again for whatever reason. But before we go any further, let me just convert that into my real numbers. And the nice thing about having these on this scale is that you don't know how much money I've actually got. And also you can show it to other people without them knowing how much money you've actually got. So, that helps. Now, getting back to our chart, maybe we'll put that on its own sheet. So this is our happiness chart. So what we're going to do is go into Edit Chart, and just go Add Series. Come back to this sheet, select Money, press OK. Bob's your uncle. That is now my money versus happiness. So you can see that my money is growing here, while my mood is generally sort of fluctuating. And in fact, they're going in opposite directions here. And then something happens here, and then it sort of fluctuates, and then something sort of goes down here, and then it sort of starts coming up again here. So what's the next thing we can do to make sense of this chart? Well, the app is called Changes for a reason. It's because I think that changes are the thing that really helps you tell the story. So we're now going to cross-reference this data with the changes data, but not before sorting this line out, which we'll go into Customize, Vertical Axis, and just make that 1.01. So that gives it a bit more space above. So if you remember, here is some stuff in my changes column. So what we are going to do, since we need a number, these are all numeric values, and if we just tried to add another series, I'll show you. Like if I tried to just add that data as a series, it just goes invalid type, because it needs to be a number. It needs to know where to put the point. So what we'll do is we'll say, okay, well, why don't we put our changes at, I guess, this 1 value. So to do that, we're just going to add in another column. We're going to rename this to changes labels while we're thinking about it. And we're going to put this to changes because that's what we want the label to be on the chart. Now I'm doing some like holding Command and pressing the up arrow and the down arrow to jump around this. So I hope that's not too disorienting. So what we're going to do is if there's something in here, make it a 1. If not, leave it blank. So actually the other way around. If the value is blank, then just put blank. Otherwise, put a 1. And then I'll just sort of pull that down. Now we can go Edit Chart, Add Series, come back to that sheet, click Changes, click OK. Now we can see this, and if we hit this button here, Add Labels, we can now select that as Changes Labels as the labels, and you can see what happened. I'm just going to tidy up this changes series so that it has sort of big points, and I There's no invisible line, so we'll just put a dotted line in. So now you can see I'm starting to tell my story. So in one little chart, you can see the story of my last couple of years. In 2019, I did a lot of contracting to build up my savings, but this work wasn't making me happy. You can see how I'm on a declining curve. So I decided to strike out on my own here and try quitting contracting forever and get my Good to Hear stuff up and running. So you can see that fluctuating, but as the money's running out, we can see that my mood starts to sort of decline more than rise. So yeah, money does affect your happiness when it starts running out, but here it's having more, they're going in opposite directions. So it's not as simple as just more money equals more happy. Coronavirus is another story, but I think we'll save that one for another day, and especially once it's settled down and we've got a bit more information about it. And you can obviously imagine just adding as many more columns to this as you like and putting more things across. And that's what the rest of this series is going to be about, just thinking about different things we can plot against our happiness just to tell the story. I'd love it if you try this out, and if you learn something about yourself, then, come and tweet me, come and tell me, leave a comment. Because I'm fascinated to see how different people's stories pan out when they look at them in data. And actually, I think this is we can tend to tell ourselves stories that aren't quite as kind or as accurate as the stories we can uncover if we're using data to do so. So this is happiness versus money. I'd love to know what you come out with. The app's in the App Store if you want that. And yeah, I just hope you'll find it useful. I've got a mailing list down here. If you're new to all this stuff, I've got a book about happiness that I'll give you for free if you sign up to the mailing list. If you're not quite ready to start doing it and you want some tips. But of course, there's the App Store link as well if you want to help me get this red line going back up again. That would be great. So yeah, take care and I'll see you next time. Bye.